down and out about their haircuts.
Sure.
I'm begging anybody out there, before you go and get surgery, before you walk into these hair clubs system places, I'm telling you right now, I am $20,000 in the hole, and 10 years of stress, the last 3, an absolutely horrifying existence of stress and pain. And I can promise you, the stress of this hairpiece is 1,000 times more than I would have ever felt if I had just been confident with who I am, dealt with the fact that these are the cards I've been dealt, and deal with them, and just shave my head. And honestly, like Spencer said, not everyone's there, but that's where I'm at.
And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. 888-659-3727. Within the first 5 seconds, I already got a tractor joke about my fucking shirt. First thing Tillman says is, nice shirt, farm boy. Oh my God. Anyway, welcome to the broadcast. Guys, we are live. This is The Bald Show, The Bald Truth. I am the founder of the American Hair Loss Association, author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss. Also happen to be the founder and director of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, and the guy on your left is the original hair transplant mentor, a guy who's been through far too many hair transplants than anyone should have to deal with. But the reality is he was a repair patient, got fucked up, made the wrong decisions, and found his way back, not only to having a normal, productive, happy life with a guy who looks like he's got a really great-looking head of hair, and essentially he does, but he chose to, as I have, turn his Achilles heel into his career. And that's what we are both here trying to do, is impart our wisdom about this ruthless $4 billion a year and growing hair loss and hair transplant industry. This cutthroat, ridiculous scumbag of a place that will rip you off, take advantage of your vulnerability, disfigure you just for money. So give us a call. 888-659-3727.
Give us a call. I like that. You know what you're saying. It actually, you know, you're talking about the hair transplants that I had to go through because I was a repair patient.
Yes.
It's interesting, and then you segued into just how nasty this industry is. You've got this Undercover Doc segment or series and Undercover Tech series where people in the industry have gone behind the curtain, so to speak to you on camera about their experiences in the industry that is really bad. Like, you know, the things they've seen, things like this. I actually had a patient go into a follow-up visit with his own doctor, and he recorded his consultation or his follow-up visit with the doctor.
I heard about that.
And if you want to talk about the nastiness, somehow the conversation got switched over to me in this
as it usually does.
And the doctor wanted to try and discredit my help for this guy because of the fact, according to him, that I've had multiple hair transplants.
Yes.
And his point was, why would you want to listen to a guy that's had multiple hair transplants when the ideal way to go through it would be to have one or two? And he's got a point. Of course, people want to go through one or two. But what this dipshit doesn't understand, or he may understand it but wants to use it against me, I can't believe he actually said this to the patient, is the fact that I have been through multiple hair transplants is because I know my shit today.
Right.
Or that's the reason why I know my shit today.
Well, it's even that's listen, that's very that's true. But even when you listen to it, there's no way any reasonable person would see you as or see what this person is saying as legitimate or in any way lessen your credibility. As a matter of fact, when you hear a physician speak in the manner in which he's speaking, with such desperateness and such ignorance,
yeah,
frankly, anybody else would run out of that room, except this guy decided he wanted to stick around and record this.
Well, and that's that's why he sent me the recording. He was recording it for his own records.
I don't even know how he kept a straight face.
I don't either. But he told me, he said, I got out of that consultation or the follow-up visit, because he already had his surgery. He was, I think he said 8 months. He said he rushed home and he had to get this uploaded to me as soon as possible because he just had to get my take on it.
Yeah.
And so, big props to the patient. It was ballsy of him, of course, but props to him for recognizing the BS that this doctor was feeding him. The patient was unhappy, by the way, so that's why he was going in and recording this. But
all you have to do is take a look at this poor guy's work.
Yeah, well, and the viewers will be able to, because we'll be putting, or we might be putting something up later. It depends on if he wants to do this or not. But again, your lead just reminded me.
Was the doc an IHRS member? He asked.
He was not an IAHRS member. He wasn't any sort of member. Well, I think he's got a couple of memberships, but nothing that is of any legitimate, what's the word I'm looking for? Consequence.
Yeah, nothing that's truly recognizable.
Yeah.
At this stage. But listen, that doesn't even make a difference. Actually, if it was an IAHRS member, it would be even more interesting, because then we would hear the tape and then they would get the guillotine, so to speak.
Well, there's that.
So it'd be better radio and better video.
It would be.
Yeah.
For sure. But your lead-in just kind of reminded me of that, and I thought I'd throw that in there because it is such a nasty, nasty industry. And there was someone in the chat room right when I started talking about this, asking, let's see, what was it? He said, are there any fake doctors? Was it, just trying to find out where he says, oh yeah, Mr. Tillman, are there fake doctors who perform hair transplants in the United States? That's a good question. I can't say that, I mean, fake doctors.
There are non-licensed, there are unlicensed professionals, but yeah, I don't know of any fake.
I don't know of anyone
doctors
saying that they're a doctor when they actually didn't achieve doctor credentials, or they, maybe were a doctor at one point and lost their licensing.
That's possible.
I'm sure there might be.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know of anyone specifically.
Right.
So
there are at least one that I'm aware of in the United Kingdom.
I'm aware of two.
Two. In
the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
That just happens to be somewhat loosely related to the situation I was just mentioning. But it's a whole deep, long, messy story. But
what a fucking soap opera that is.
It is. Guys watching this and listening, if you knew even a fraction of the shit that goes on in this industry, look, I'm telling you, I need a writer to call. Like, if there's a Hollywood writer, please call me. We got a script that we could put down to paper that would be a 10-year #1 Emmy-winning soap opera.
It's funny. I was actually speaking to somebody in television who's currently in television, and this is a friend of mine, and he has been trying to rack his brain on how we can turn what we do, what I do, this hair war situation, because he's privy to all the stuff that I talk about. Besides the show, I speak to him on a personal level about the insanity. He doesn't see it as a multi-part series, like a drama type of a situation. He sees it more of a either a segmented documentary or just a documentary itself. But he says it's money, man. It is money because it is such a bizarre subset of the cosmetic surgery industry that is actually growing exponentially. But if people actually knew what went on behind the scenes, where all the bodies are buried, all of the terrible people, the lowlives, the scumbags, the online defamers, the guys that have, to try to destroy their colleagues' practices anonymously. It is repugnant. It is ridiculous, but it's really sexy, I got to say.
It is. And the title will be Hair Wars.
Yeah, someone just took it out. They're going to make an image of it, and they're going to put your fucking picture on it, and that's it.
Be sure you use this image.
Yeah.
There you go. Hair Wars.
Guys, listen, we are live. 888-659-3727. If we do not receive any phone calls, we are going off the air tonight. So right now, all lines are open. There were two people holding on a second ago, so feel free to call back. We will take your calls. 888-659-3727. Obviously, we are here to talk about inside baseball of this industry as well, but we're also here to answer your hair loss and, frankly, your hair transplant questions, because in my view, the reason we've evolved the program to discuss more surgical topics is because it is such a dangerous aspect of the industry, and frankly, it's becoming more acceptable by the mainstream, by the consumer, to kind of think of surgery first, as opposed to thinking of it truly as the last resort that it was, and it still is. And, when hair transplant surgery kind of had a bad name because of the plug days, mini and micrographs, and because people thought of hair transplant surgery differently than they do today, it was something that a lot of people, a very small percentage of hair loss sufferers, actually decided to pursue. That has changed. So the good news is the market for the good doctors out there, the market is bigger than ever. There are more patients to go around than ever before. Your competitors, your real hair transplant competitors, are no longer your competitors. They need to be your fucking allies, because everybody else who is just buying a turnkey device or just deciding to dabble in hair transplants and put it on their menu of cosmetic procedures, they're eating your lunch. These are the guys that are getting the eyeballs now. These are the guys that are finding the new patients, and that are, unfortunately, I always say this, I believe that both these physicians, some of these new physicians who are getting into the field, especially the board-certified plastic surgeons who have good reputations, as well as the consumers, have been sold a bill of goods. They've been sold the concept that hair transplantation is a one-size-fits-all procedure, that hair transplantation is an easy outpatient procedure that anybody can perform. We just saw in our WhatsApp group a PowerPoint slide from a PowerPoint presentation given by a very well-known Austin-based board-certified plastic surgeon, essentially telling the audience that in her practice, she was talking about Facebook ads, things like that, and also talking about the extra stream of almost ancillary revenue that she's able to produce by taking out ads for hair transplantation using certain, online social media, and essentially allowing technicians who are flown in from a different part of the state to perform surgery on a patient while she is actually seeing other patients, either having consultations or performing other procedures. This is out there for public consumption. This is something that is now looked at as, and guys, I'll take your call in a second, as the standard of care in this field. Now, what I think is important for everyone to know is, and especially the old school doctors who are listening to this program, and maybe for the first time because now they are scared shitless and know that they are losing the game, they are losing their practices, and they will eventually lose the ability to practice the discipline that they love, because no one's going to go to them. Because you know who they're going to go to? They're going to go to the Jason Diamonds of the world. They're going to go to the Jennifer Waltons of the world. That's how you pronounce her name. They're going to go to the Paul Nassifs of the industry, who are now, they're very well-known plastic and facial plastic surgeons who are now dabbling in hair. And just like the Texas doctor said, she's not even doing the surgery.
Fully and openly admits it.
Right.
She's doing consultations.
So in her mind, because there's been no real standard set except for the current standard of care in the industry, there are no legal issues. And that's the way that it is. So, with that said, all of you old school guys, man, you guys are fighting this, trying to make sure that claim there's a black market or certain things are illegal. Many of you guys, or most of you guys, have been flying or basically operating, what's the word, in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight, essentially. Essentially performing, using the same standard of care. What makes it illegal at this point? The use of technicians to delegate tasks to technicians has been around since the inception of this procedure. Period. Now that you guys are having these new guys are eating your lunch, you're trying to flip out, and you're acting in a knee-jerk way that could end up biting everybody in the ass. And you know who's going to be harmed the most? In my view, the patient. Because what's going to happen? All of the really good technicians and PAs and people who have been performing good surgery with doctors, they're going to be knocked out of the box so that novice doctors can be performing the surgeries. Because it's quote-unquote now legal, or it's the only legal way it's going to be performed. That's a dumb move. Dumb move. That is bad for the patient.
Bad for everyone involved.
Everyone involved, but it really, in the end, is bad for the patient. All of these other guys would be out of business, but it's bad for everybody involved. And if there's a retroactive legal ramifications, it could be a problem. Guys are just fucking stupid. That's all I'm saying. Guys who are doing this, who are going down this route, instead of concentrating on what should really be, and that is improving the standard of care in this industry, training those who are actually performing surgery to do great work. You're wasting your fucking time, and you're harming people, in my view. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? Hello? Hey, man, you're on the air. What's up?
Yes, hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, hello. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Hey, Joe, this is Brady.
Hey, Brady.
Hello, Brady.
Hello, Brady.
Hey.
I'm here too, man. What about me?
Hey, how's it going, Spencer? Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I didn't think I was actually going to get on.
Jesus Christ. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. Nothing much. I guess I was just calling in just to talk about my situation as far as the hair transplants have gone and where I'm at nowadays, and just to get your guys' opinion of how I should best move forward.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I've told Joe my story, and I was 19 when I had my first transplant.
Holy
shit.
That Brady. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
It took me a moment. We've not spoken in a while, and I'm actually speaking to another Brady at the moment. So
this is not the guy from the Publishing Clearinghouse commercials. What's that guy's name? Brady.
I keep thinking Ed McMahon.
He's the brother.
I don't know. Brady. Something Brady. Not the comedian.
Yeah.
Used to be on Whose Line Is James Wayne Brady.
Wayne Brady. He kind of looks like that doctor who has a Z for his last name.
Took entirely too long for me to think of that.
And
anyway.
You totally missed that joke. It was awesome. It was funny as hell.
All right.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Yes. So, anyways, yeah, I was 19, and for me, I'm now 37, and I'm only really facing the reality of what I'm dealing with now. And but I was 19, and it wasn't even about hair loss when I originally went in for the surgery. I had a bad accident when I was an 11-year-old kid that basically ripped my scalp off, and it left me with this pretty significant scar that touched my hairline at 3 different places, and it always bothered me.
Sure.
And so it always bothered me, and I had a scar revision surgery when I was 18, and that kind of caused some hair to shock out. and it really affected me. And just to let you know where I was at the time, it bothered me so much I was praying about it. I prayed about it. And then I was watching TV one night, and this infomercial comes on for hair transplants. And I had the idea that, maybe I could get some hair transplanted in the scar to cover the scar. So I ended up calling the number up and set an appointment to see the doctor, and went in and he promised me that, yeah, we could fix that up for you, no problem. All right, so I booked an appointment to have the surgery. I had no idea about hair transplants, really didn't know what I was getting into. I just thought I was going to have hair put into the scar. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the chair the day of the surgery, and the doctor pulls out his pen and starts marking where he's going to put hairs, and he's putting hairs in like my temple areas and kind of bringing the hairline down a little bit. And I go, what are you doing, doc? And he goes, you've had some recession. We're going to give you a more youthful hairline. And I remember what I said to him. I go, I trust you, doc. Whatever you think's best. That's what I said. So anyway,
famous last words, my man. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And so he did the first procedure, and it grew out. And I didn't know anything still about hair transplants. I didn't tell anybody in the world about it. It was just a secret thing that I was doing. There was a lot of shame. I was just really embarrassed of the whole thing. And it grew out, and it didn't look good. And so I ended up going back to the doctor. And he talked to me and said, hey, we just need to fill it in. We need to do another procedure. So I did another procedure with him, and he just kept adding hairs into that new hairline and kept basically stacking mini grafts into it. Anyways, that grew in, and it didn't look right. And I went back to him a third time, believe it or not. And
you were probably 21 at the time, so yeah, I believe it. You're already, you've already gone there twice. You're comfortable with this guy, even though things didn't look right. But you're kind of told that and that was the old plug and mini micro days, or probably mini micros. Yeah. But in those days, and to this day, usually that is the mantra. Oh, it doesn't look right because you actually need more hair. Well, if I needed more hair, doc, why the fuck didn't you put more hair in to begin with?
Yeah.
That's the reason why my hair is growing in 7 different directions.
Right.
Why didn't you take care of that initially?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, I went to him, talked me into a third surgery, and I did the third surgery with him. And by the time the third one grew in, I finally was catching up that this wasn't working out well. And so I finally got online, and there was this website back then called Hair Transplant Horror Stories. And I posted my story on there and told them my age and everything. I still didn't know anything about hair transplants, but some people contacted me, and a lawyer actually got a hold of me and says, look, I'd like to meet you. I think you maybe have a case here. And anyway, so
was that the attorney that was going after Hitzig back in the day?
I don't know. I don't know if he was or if he wasn't. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if he was. I really.
Who's your doctor?
I'm not privy to tell. I'm not allowed to say.
Okay, because you signed a.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to say, but anyways,
you can say where he is.
Where he's in Southern California.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
He was he was a big kind of a big name at the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He had a partner. He had a partner on the East Coast that broke off with him. I don't know why they broke off.
So the last name starts with an E.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Exactly. So anyways, the lawyer says, what I need you to do is pick some other doctors and go visit them and get their opinion of the work. And so I picked, Hassan and Wong up in Vancouver, and I took the Greyhound up there from LA, and then I took the Greyhound over to Minnesota to see Dr. Shapiro, and then I saw Dr. Aspen here in LA. And, I never forget, across Dr. Hassan, the first person who looked at it, there was a medical professional, and he looks at me and he goes, "It's criminal what this man did to you," and he went and pulled in Dr. Wong and said, "Look at this, can you believe this?" And so,
I'm sure that made you feel great, by the way.
Yeah. It made me feel wonderful.
That's probably not the tactic that I would have used.
I've been there many times, and I'm sorry, but at the same time, he didn't mean to make you feel bad, but it is a situation where a colleague does need to.
He's calling the front desk girl saying, "You got to see this shit. Come here."
Yeah, calling up his family members. Hey, come down to the office.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Asking if you'd be a case study for a textbook.
Yeah. So So that's good. Then I went over to Shapiro, and Shapiro was a little gentler about it, but they recommended the same thing. And then I saw Raspin, and Raspin was actually the strongest about it. He's like, I'll get on the stand for you if you need me to get on the stand for you, you know. And but the bottom line is I was just concerned about it getting taken care of. I wanted to get it fixed. And they had recommended that I do a resection, cut out the whole hairline, you know, and then come in with a new transplant in front of the scar that would result from the resection. And anyways, that scared the crap out of me. Like, I was just, at the time, I just wasn't willing to do that. And then it was also suggested that I could possibly use FUE to remove the hairs from the hairline, all the mini grafts. There's pitting, just hairs in weird directions. And so anyways, I ended up going the route of trying to FUE out the old hairline. And so I've now been through 3 FUE procedures to remove the old hairline, and it's improved the situation. And then I had another strip procedure last year, which is my 4th strip procedure to try and kind of rebuild the hairline and soften it up a little bit. But the bottom line is I'm at a place where, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what to do, and it's kind of freaking me out because I have this hairline that was placed, and in my eyes, it was placed too low. It's a pretty youthful hairline, you know, and then I started somewhere around the 1st, 2nd procedure. I started losing hair. I started noticing on the crown, and I'm going to a Norwood 6 right now. It looks like a Norwood 6 pattern. So I have this low hairline. I'm losing more hair behind it, and I'm kind of stuck in a place where I'm just realizing like my future is more transplants, probably going to have to include body hair to try and maintain a realistic look. Or I'm considering just shaving it off and trying SMP. And I don't know who to trust. I've been visiting a lot of SMP clinics and been visiting a lot of doctors, and I get so many different opinions. And it's just very difficult to know who to trust.
Well, let me ask you this. You've seen Ron Shapiro. You had surgery done by Ron, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you spoken with him or anybody at the clinic recently?
I just spoke to them last week. I actually got an email from Dr. Ron, and I have an appointment next week to talk with Matt Zupan.
Okay. If you could, I would probably see if I could, you know, have, especially at this stage, have a consultation with Ron himself, or at least speak with him and let him take a look at you via Skype, and let him kind of tell you what your true options are.
Right.
Depending on your scarring, and again, I'm not a physician, if you are willing to go the SMP route and wear your hair very short, it's possible that, you know, with the trichopigmentation, if the scarring is not too terrible, which it seems like it might be, you may be past the point of no return with that. I'm not sure. You'd have to tell me. And Joe can speak to this. You know, if you're at a point where you feel like you're going to Norwood 6, you're going to need more hair, and you're going to need several more transplants, it's possible that you'll benefit more by putting the brakes on it if you're willing to wear your hair very, very short to the point where it looks shaved. Then a good trichopigmentation might be the thing for you.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah.
Well, I've spoken to Brady about this quite a bit, and what was the last thing that we were talking about though, Brady? Did I tell you just to, you know, just to say
you told
fuck
me
it, just
put the brakes
just
on
try
and take some time.
Yeah, but were we talking about shaving, or did you tell me that that's not something you're equipped to handle?
I did mention it was something that I was just beginning to consider, and you said you might want to consider that before more transplants as an option.
Yeah, because and that's what was okay. I remember that now. I remember that because I was actually waiting to get my burritos when I was in the truck. We were calling. Yeah, right. I gonna go get some tacos and burritos. But so your situation is one of, you know, why keep going forward? Why don't you just put the brakes on and maybe try going backward by getting your haircut shorter and shorter to see how it looks, and try that for a while. You know, see if that's something that you can live with, because sometimes the scarring isn't like in my own case. The only reason why I never shaved my head after my 2 procedures in the 90s, it wasn't because of the 2 scars in the back of my head. It was because of the way that the thick grafts would have started to regrow the very next day. and it would have looked like a field with tree stumps. That's why I never shaved my head, and because back in the 90s you look like a Nazi skinhead. So, but besides that, the scarring wasn't an issue for me. As far as that goes, I would have been fine with that. I think anyway. I never had that much of an issue with it. But in your case, it might be the same, and you might have almost like an epiphany when you see it. Like, shit, why have I been pursuing this for so long? This is fine. I can handle this. Maybe get a little sun on your head. A little bit of tan on your scalp instead of looking like what's his name? I forgot the
powder.
Powder. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Instead of looking like powder, get some sunshine in your scalp, and it might work fine.
It might work fine. Yeah.
Visit with a trichopigmentation specialist. Do not go to a permanent S&P clinic that's using permanent pigment, because it's just like with surgery. Once you're cut, you're cut. Once you're inked, you're inked.
You want to be able to have the opportunity to back your way out if you need to.
Yeah, not to mention it doesn't work the same in your scar tissue as it does your skin tissue. Two separate issues. Right. So sometimes that blending might not work.
So I find it interesting. I know that this is. We're usually on the same page, Joe. But just hearing this guy's story for the first time, in my view, I really think he should take that advice. That you instead of moving forward, instead of setting yourself up for a lifetime of hair transplants until you're completely donor depleted, and you're not going to be happy anyway in the end, because if you continue to lose more hair, you may end up having to wear hair. You may really box yourself into a point where there is no shaving your head. So you should try it now, or at least take Joe's advice, cut it short, see how short you can go, and then if you can get to the point where you can cut it, buzz it really close to see how the scars look, do that, and then consider if you're equipped to deal with the shaved look, trichopigmentation may be for you, and it could be life-changing. I know one guy who had, I think it was 2 hair transplants, has a strip scar. He went to Joe's friend on the island, in Long Island, in New York, or in Queens somewhere, and he was stuck under a hairpiece, or felt he was stuck under a hairpiece for like 25 years. And now he is liberated.
Wow, yeah.
Now, in general, I am not a fan of tattooing your scalp in any way, shape, or form, but I think for some people, it can be life-saving.
Right. And, I did talk to Nicole, who's Shapiro's tricho person. And, obviously if I could go anywhere on the face of earth for this work, I'd go to Shapiro, because I trust those people, and she made it real clear that we're going to do no harm. And, they do the temporary one. They start out with the tricho. And I kind of see how reasonable that is to give that a go before I start going into more surgeries. Because, I know I'm facing the facts. I have a lifetime of surgeries ahead of me. And it's, if I decide to go that route, and, the thought of maybe being able to shave my head and be comfortable with it would be like amazingly good news to me. Like, if I could somehow pull that off, it would be really good news.
Imagine not being in a position where you have the surgery, you're sitting there, at the house, going through the recovery, the physical pain of the recovery, and the trepidation, the lack of knowing, and the anxiety of, will it work this time?
Right.
Only to be disappointed at the end. Right. I mean, that's what we've been going through. You've been going through multiple disappointments from various stages throughout this process. Imagine how it would feel to be able to not go through that again and accept where you are.
Yeah,
right.
It would be incredible.
Putting that on the shelf and forgetting about it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I see the wisdom in that going that route. So I'm going to consider it, and I think like Spencer said too, you get up to Shapiro and let those people,
Yeah, and listen, nothing against Matt, but I think if you're thinking of trichopigmentation, speak to the what's her name again, Joe?
Nicole.
Yeah, speak to Nicole and Ron, in my view.
And Ron.
Ron did your surgery, right?
Yes, he's done some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speak to the surgeon, and speak to Nicole. Speak to the people who are going to actually be, the one person who actually, probably understands your situation better than anybody, and that's the person who performed your surgery, and also the person you may entrust to have trichopigmentation to. Nothing against Matt. Nothing against him.
Right.
But, he is not in those trenches.
Right.
So I don't know if you agree with that, Joe, but
no, I do. I mean, I like Matt. I mean, he's definitely
he's a great educator and consultant and all that stuff.
Absolutely. But at this point, if when you've been through as much as you've been through, it's great to talk to people like Matt at the beginning, right? And for the minor stuff that kind of goes along with everything else. But I agree with Spencer. At this point, you need to speak with the actual bat swingers.
And there's no reason why. If you tell Matt, say, hey, listen, this is kind of like I don't know how much time I have left or how what my options are as far as moving forward, what they really are. Will this be possible? Will I be too scarred? I just need to speak to Dr. Ron first.
Right.
And that's it. And he'll be like, fine, let's set it up.
All right.
All right, man?
That sounds good, guys. That sounds good. Listeners, be careful out there. Be careful before you get a hair transplant. It can be a nightmare that you can't imagine. It really can be.
Well, I hope that you come out of this. You're still a young man. You come out the other side being able to live a life where you can kind of tell the tale.
Yeah.
And be happy.
Yeah, I would. Well, thank you for saying that. And it would. I'm holding out hope that it's possible. Some days I don't feel it's possible, but maybe it is. I got to keep the hope alive. And
I think it might be. It really depends on your scarring situation. Even with the scarring situation, with the right tricho, if it takes well on your particular scars and your scalp, it really can. With a situation like yours, when someone is willing to shave down, it could really be life-changing and freeing.
All right.
All right, man?
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys for the time. You guys are doing
care.
a great job, both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Good hearing from you.
Thanks, Joe. All right. Thank you, Joe. Bye.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Sean from OKC, Oklahoma City.
Sean from Oklahoma City. What's happening, man? How are you?
Not much. What are you guys doing? How you guys doing?
Well, we're doing a show, and I think we're doing fine. Thanks for asking.
I think I'm calling in.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I probably have the most. I'm about the long-time caller, first-time listener. No, I'm just kidding. So I kind of concur with Brady that just got off the phone with you guys. I had it actually done when I was turning right before I was 21, about 20. And my problem is I'm thinking about going back to get it done, but I got caught up in a whirlwind of bad ethics with different doctors, and I didn't sign shit, so I can name names if you want them.
Yeah, do whatever you want, man.
I love that attitude. I didn't sign shit, so I'm naming names.
Yeah.
Well, I hear you feel calls. I understand when you sign a confidentiality, I get it, but I didn't sign fucking shit, so I'm going to name names because I'm talking. I got deep. I befriended Dr. Otar Norwood here from Oklahoma City that died. Norwood.
Yeah.
And
I know Norwood.
I ended up. Right, before he died, I got to be good friends with him because I had so much shit done to me, like my balls bleed. Because back in '88 when I had this done, because I'm 51 now.
Right.
And anyways, so back
let me tell you, back then, 1988, going to Bosley, or actually anybody, except for, Otar was really, kind of ahead of his time. But
I was really into muscle and fitness, and him and Joe Weider did Joe Weider's hair. He had all these slick ads out in the brochures, as you know. And
I know.
He was telling me all these he was telling me about doing all these people's hair when it's supposed to be confidential. He was naming names left and right. His back then, the sales pitch guy was wearing the white lab coat, making you think he was a PA when he was just putting on a white lab coat to try to sell you, procedures.
Those were the days, man.
I know, right? And so I basically bought a $20,000 hat.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets better.
Yeah.
But and this is what I've had done for all that money. They gave me 4, as they would call it, MPRs, male pattern reductions. If you remember Bosley's little patent.
I do.
And Yes, they taught me into 4 reductions, 288 large punch grafts between 18 to 20 hairs, and then 40 mini grafts. And then I got caught up in a whirlwind of all these affairs going on at Bosley. It got so bad that Dr. Larry Bosley called me himself. And it got ugly.
What affairs? What are you talking about?
Well, what happened? My doctor, I don't know if you remember, he was an older gentleman, even back then, Dr. Louis Durain.
Sure.
Okay, Dr. Durain, Dr. Bosley was doing his hair. He was wearing a hairpiece while he was doing my hair because he was flying back and forth from Beverly Hills for, Dr. Bosley doing his. Well, he ran off with the nurse at in Highland Park, Texas here. And they got in this big-ass fight. They called me and said he took the files and he took pictures and he got all the patients' numbers. So when he told Dr. Bosley he was retiring to his ranch in Wyoming, I believe, or Montana, and he ended up opening up another shop or clinic, in I believe it was right there in not Plano, but over by where all the Dallas Cowboys live. All the players live over there. It's by Highland Park where I went. And he ended up starting his own clinic. Right. And he took all the existing patients' numbers, and he had his girlfriend, the head nurse, pardon the pun, and he took everybody. Exactly. Yeah. So she called. So she was calling everybody, and they go, "Hey, listen, you stay with the doctor that started you. It's real important. You don't want to go back to Bosley. He's bringing all these Dr. LaFleur, I believe his name was, from Louisiana. He's bringing all these makeshift doctors in." And then Dr. Raspman and me got into it. I'm sure you know Dr. Raspman.
I know Dr. Raspman, and I know when Dr. Raspman was working with Bosley. Sure.
Yeah, but at first he wasn't, and he was bad-mouthing Bosley, but he didn't tell nobody at one time he was the president of Bosley.
Right.
And he was on the, when Brady a while ago said that he was on the hair transplant horror stories, I was on there too in the 90s, and I got an argument with him as well, and he called me. And then Larry, Dr. Bosley himself, called me, was going to fly me to Beverly Hills and ask me what I was unsatisfied with, and I said, well, where do you want me to start? There's fucking ethics. I'm getting a tug of war. I bought a $20,000 hat. You guys didn't come through. I've got my head's blown up like Rocky Dennis on Mask.
Wow.
And, I mean, it was bad. I had to go to the hospital one time, and they go, "Did you get a hatchet wound in the back of your head?"
Wow.
And I was like, "No, I've had a reduction." And then, of course, it was like talking Greek. They looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I basically felt like it. And so to make a long story longer, but it became down to Rassman, and then he had NHI at the time, if you remember.
I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he went to Bosley, and he did it secretly, kind of, because like I said, him and Bosley was kind of in a personal kind of little battle behind the scenes. And then
by the way, guys who are just tuning into this soap opera, this is exactly what we're talking about. And whatever you think has evolved or changed, it has actually gotten worse. Except
that's what I'm saying. And I came in on the forefront. I came in right when this shit started. Back then, Spence, it was just, Dallas is my backyard. It's 190 miles from me. Back then, you had clinics only in California, Chicago, and then close to me was Houston, Dr. Stowe, I believe.
Stowe.
And then there was
Stowe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, him and his son. And then Dr. Bosley popped up in Highland Park Village there in Dallas, suburb of Dallas. And
it was,
of course, I was
Buford and Dow, and then it was a relatively small, well kept, bizarre little market of, I would say that. And that's when I came in. I came in 1998 when I wrote The Bald Truth, and I was only able to actually recommend 11 physicians in the entire country who were doing state-of-the-art follicular unit hair transplantation. Imagine that. 11 guys only were actually performing good surgery.
Well, it's funny you said that, because when you wrote that book, I actually love. I used to buy that brush that you put out, and I loved it.
I didn't put out a brush.
You know what I'm talking about? I bet you put out a brush with the curve, the stuff. I thought was when you had that newsletter.
Oh, I didn't sell anything, but yeah.
Oh, I used to get something in the hair thing. I thought that was your line or something.
No.
The brush, not the toothpaste. Okay.
No,
maybe I got it mixed up with something
that was
else.
actually the name of the company was Spencer. It was Spencer Forrest. The owner's name was Mark
That's
Kress.
probably why I got you. That's probably where I got you mixed up at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back to my
God,
story.
I wish I was that guy.
Well, here's what happened. People don't really talk about a lot of the psychological warfare that goes on with this stuff, and I mean, I got married like 3 times, bam, 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 because I was so psychologically just spent.
Yeah.
And I mean, and here's the funny part. It's not really funny, but the women didn't even care about it. I did.
Of course.
And they would say, Sean, it's no big deal. Don't bother me. I'm like, I understand, but it bothers me. And I was making decisions, Spence, I don't think I would make if I felt like myself.
That's the nature of this game, and that's
that
what
is the nature.
That's
exactly.
what these, I would say, I don't want to even call them butchers anymore because it's even beyond that. It's just these guys are in my view, many of these guys are just like psychological terrorists, man. They prey on the vulnerability of young men.
Yes,
yeah.
They are exactly that. They're emotional vampires.
Yeah, well said.
And
I'm going to use that one. Emotional vampire.
Vampires. That's what they are. They feed off it, and then they hook, line, sinker you in when they make you think like, hey, if you don't stay with me, you're gonna, you got to stay with me because I'm going to make it better. But it's just like it's a short, it's there's nothing to it. It's just a bunch of bad promises, and then everybody goes on and you pay them, and it's like they yell next. And then, you go somewhere else, and then you can ask 10 doctors, and you're going to get 10 different answers.
Look, Larry Lee sold his practice, I think, for $56 million. This was 20-some-odd years ago when $56 million was real money. And not that it isn't now, but I mean, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, and what's so funny was that I wrote back then, of course, being 51 worlds, I mean, you wrote letters back then.
Yeah.
I wrote him
I'm
a
older
letter,
than you.
and he...
Yeah.
I guess, I'm almost 52, right?
I'm 53.
Anyways, I wrote, there you go. So I wrote Bosley a letter and thought, oh, he's going to say, fuck this guy. I don't care. I got his money. Fuck him. And he actually called me and was going to fly me up there. And he was asking what my problem was. And he was kind of nice, but kind of like honest in his own dishonest way. Does that make sense?
Well, I think he was trying to mitigate any possible damage. You're talking about the infancy of the internet back then. The damage that could have been caused back then was pretty significant because the internet was small, and the people that were looking up hair stuff, it was easy to find the negative commentary.
Well, and back then with the reductions, I mean, just about 5 to 6 years ago, I finally got my nerve endings back. My head was numb for almost, this has been 30 years ago, 88, and I finally got my nerve endings or my feeling back on my head just not too long ago. I mean, where I could actually, it's almost like when you're sitting somewhere and your foot is itching and you start stomping and trying to scratch it, you can't do it.
Yeah, I get
That's
that.
how it felt when you scratched your head. You couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
You couldn't get no relief.
I know exactly how you feel, but how did you get your feeling back? Did it just come back on its own, or did you have another surgery?
No, it came back on its own after over almost 30 years. It came back on its own, but for years, I mean, I'm talking, I couldn't feel anything,
Wow.
And it was just crazy because like I said, the ethics part of these people, like back then, they could sit there and do a nose job and do a hair transplant, lens of oil, and keep going for the day. I mean, back then anybody could do it, and
now it's even now. Forget about back then. Now it's even worse. At least back then there were physicians who were involved.
That's true.
Sadly, listen. I mean, the technology has evolved to the point where if smaller procedures are done by the right technicians, and you're in a much better position than getting a male pattern reduction. That when you think about forget about. I mean, think 1988 was not really the dark ages. Sadly, it was the dark ages of hair transplant surgery. But if you really think about the logic behind, people understood what donor dominance was. Ottar Norwood already, Norman Orenreich wrote about it in the late 1950s. We knew that the donor area, the donor wreath, especially in guys who are going to reach a Norwood 7 or even greater than that, then, it's going to slowly go down. The parietal humps are going to go down. So pulling that skin together and pulling that non-permanent hair together was logically illogical. I mean, it made no fucking sense. to try to close that up.
I didn't have one grafting, Spence, not one graft that I have until I had my third reduction. Okay, they went in there and I was sitting on top, but they said, "Well, you're a young man," and then they did my hairline. They said we used what do you call it? The 3 parts of Michelangelo, the chin to the nose.
The golden, the golden triangle, golden rule, the golden whatever.
That's it. That's exactly. That's so funny. So, anyways, so he goes, "Well, we're going to start out. We're just going to do one NPR, male pattern reduction, for once a month for 3 months before we do any grafting." So I had reductions every month from May, June, July of '88, and then in '92 I went back when Dr. During went on to open his own clinic, and I decided to go back, and he gave me 40 mini grafts and did another, but he called it a half an NPR.
Hold on, back up. You had 3 in 3 months?
Yes.
That was very common back then.
Oh.
Yes.
So basically, they came in with their folder, and they figured out how much money and what this guy did for a living.
Exactly. I bought a $20,000 hat, and I kept saying, and then what was so funny about it, well, not funny, but the coverage looked good, but what they don't tell you is that when you get all the stretch back and your hair thins out and the texture changes because you cut that skin out, and when you pull that hair up, as you know, the existing hair thins out more.
Well,
you already had fine hair.
And you're also creating a larger hairline around your ears.
Yes.
There's all you're affecting the nape of the neck.
You're completely distorting the angle and direction of hair growth and the flow of the direction.
They are changing the integrity of your entire scalp.
The geometry of how hair grows is completely distorted.
Yeah.
I to this day, I had never worn my hair except straight back. There's the angles are just crazy nuts. I mean, they are just fucked. I mean, and these are the large grafts. My hairline was all done with the large punch graft, and then they put 40 mini grafts in between, which is not a whole lot because I had 288 large grafts and then 40 mini grafts. That's all the grafting of transplants I had. The rest were 4 reductions. Between 1988 and 1992 was 4 reductions, 3 in 3 months, and then 92 he gave me another one. Dr. During said, "Well, I'm going to do another one. I think you'll be really happy with it."
God.
And I said, yeah. And, and you see, you don't hear a lot of people, like I said, I know now that's banned and they can't do it no more, but I never knew the severity of it until I started looking at YouTube videos.
How can you? I mean, you go in like everybody else and you can't blame yourself. I was a unique case because I went in and the doctor told me when I went to see Norman Orenreich to try a few transplants. And he's like, if you were my own son, I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, I sat back as a 22-year-old kid or however old I was. I'm like, what do you mean try a few? Where are you going to put them? I barely had any recession in my hairline. It's actually probably an inch lower than it is right now. And the hair was just thinning overall. So there was nowhere to place the graft. So his methodology or philosophy or, what his reasoning was that we'll start you now, and then as you continue to bald, no one's going to notice. And I was put the brakes on this shit, bitch, because
stay ahead of your hair loss.
Because that is not logical.
That's what he told me. He kept saying, "This is like an island." He said, "And you're so young, you're going to bald more," which I knew because I started losing my hair when I was 17. And I said, he goes, "So we're going to do the reduction and get that crown, everything pulled up, and then we'll start grafting so we can keep ahead of the baldness." That was his sales pitch to me.
Yeah, it's keep your hair. Listen, when I went to the hair club, it was the same thing. And I'm telling you, this poor lady, I'll never forget. She was a beautiful woman. She was older than me, and she kept saying, "You're a really good-looking guy. You don't want to lose your looks, this and that," like really playing me. And I had my girlfriend at the time who was with me, and I just kept saying, "I want to see what it is. What is it? What are you doing to my head?" And she would say, "Well, it's this strand by strand." I don't want you to describe it. I want you to show it to me. And she was literally, I saw beads of sweat coming out through on her forehead. So she brought some guy in, and I said, in front of this poor guy who actually used to be on the hair club commercials, I'm like, "That looks like a wig." And he goes, no, it's a system.
Oh, yes. They will correct you.
I'm like,
you know what's so funny?
I said, it's a system. I actually said this. I said, it's a system. And I was a real smart ass. I guess I am to this day. I said, it's a system that looks like a wig. So what is that, a wig system? And they didn't even know. I said, let me see what it looks like off. Show me exactly what you guys plan to do. They brought it in, and it was a wig. And I was like,
yeah.
That took an hour and a half of my time, but I'm glad I found out.
the ironic part about my story, the guy that sold me all the procedures, because back then, I don't know how they do it now, because I haven't been in so long, even for a checkup, they used to send the guy in the lab coat in, and he would tell you the procedures, then you would see the doctor afterwards after he got you hook, line, and sinker. And ironically enough, he is actually one of the main salesmen at Hair Club now.
It's not ironic. That's the reality.
His name is Phil Reed. I don't know if you know who he is.
You know what? I don't like to say it, but I do. You know.
Okay, then you know I'm talking. If you know him, you know exactly what a salesman is.
Well, all I can tell you is this: that back in the day, back when you had your initial surgeries done, there was I say around 19. It was like the mid 90s actually, when I think it was Nightline. No, I'm sorry, it was an NBC show, Dateline maybe, and they did a special, an expose on Bosley, and the reality was. From everyone who's called my show over the years, you know, allegedly what they did was they had these different Post-it notes with different colored Post-it notes, and they would essentially assess you for how much money you'd be able to spend. And if you were a baller, I don't know what color they used for ballers. That could have been a yellow Post-it. If you were just, the regular working man, it was a pink Post-it or a blue Post-it or whatever. And that's how. So when the doctor walked into the room, that was in the chart right there. They knew exactly what you were willing to do.
Well, what also upset me back then, I was, like I said, this happened in May of '88, which my birthday is June 1st, so I was 1 month shy of 21, and it was how Dr. Rain wasn't very personable. It was like he was there to do his work. I would try to talk to him, and he wasn't very personable with me. I mean, he was a nice guy. He'd answer my questions with just one answer, words, and not go into any detail or any kind of, when you're in a people business like this, you need to be a little friendly. You're a people person. You're selling your product, and I just couldn't get nothing out of them. So when all this affair shit went down, it got crazy. They were calling me at least twice a week and trying to get me to come up to finish.
It's amazing. They needed that money, man. They needed that fucking money.
Well,
They're just starting out. This guy probably left his wife for the head nurse. No pun intended.
He did.
Yeah.
Get dirt on her knees.
Yeah.
That's I knew.
And he probably had to pay alimony and tuition and all that shit that goes along.
Well, here's where it gets ugly. Here's what's so funny. After they call me, Joe Spence, then Dr. Phil calls me from Dr. Bosley and gives me his spiel going, hey, they broke into our offices and back then, remember the old Xerox? They Xeroxed everything and got all the patients' phone numbers. So if they call you, Sean,
what is this, fucking Watergate, man? I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody talks about these fucked up ethics in the 80s. This shit was going on worse then, and I was in the middle of it. I was just a kid, and they were going, oh, no, he lied to us. He told Dr. Bosley he was going to Wyoming to a ranch and retired. He just went down the street and opened up a new clinic, and now he's our competition. He's a liar. He ran off with the nurse.
You think there's anything different today? It's the same, if not worse today. Now what's happening?
I was going to say it's the same or worse.
They're trying to destroy. They're destroying each other online anonymously.
Sure. Well, that's just like with Joe. I watched Joe's YouTube videos fight with that dickhead Dave guy from the band. I won't mention his last name.
Oh yeah.
Well, there was no fight. I was just calling out facts about some things that were going on.
He's a fucking prick. I'll say it for you. And
let me back up, okay? I can't say that he's a fucking prick because I really don't know. In fact, I mean, he might be a nice guy. It's just I didn't agree with some of the things that he was saying because they were blatant. They were blatant lies. That's all there is to it.
I watched his videos, and I watched him call you out without saying your name after you made your video. I saw him retort your video without saying your name. And his little guy, he has talking for him, his little, I guess that's his consultant guy. I listened to their take on stuff before you guys even kind of had your little back and forth. I watched it, and I couldn't believe some of the shit he was saying.
Make no mistake. It's they like during that rebuttal video, everything that he was rebutting wasn't even an issue to begin with. He was rebutting things that never were said or things that never happened. When he was making his video. What's that?
Like he didn't wear concealer. When he said he didn't wear concealer when he got out of the shower and stuff, and he was saying that was all his real hair, and he didn't use anything except for
not even an issue I was even talking about. I couldn't care less about whether he wears filler in his hair or not. complete non-issue.
Joe is just happy that he did the video in the shower with the shirt off.
Exactly, because I'm happy that he did that because it told me just how much it bothered him.
And he had a shirt
Anyway.
off, and you thought he was going down the Blue Oyster on Police Academy. I got you.
Oh man.
Anyways,
you went there.
I'm showing
man.
I know.
You're showing your age there, dude.
I gotta take a moment to throw a shout out to FSK in the chat room. When Spencer was talking about wigs being systems, he says, "This is great. I worked in a suitcase shop years ago, and they called it a travel system. It's a fucking bag."
Well, that's what they do. They always say hair systems, or they'll say something like some kind of a weave, or something where it sounds more technological, where it don't sound like, without saying toupee, rug, hairpiece, where it appeals to the millennials.
Well, well, I'll tell you this. I have to give credit to Cy Sperling because I happen to know Cy, and this guy came up. It was brilliant. It changed the entire industry, and it made people really less concerned and more. It made it more palatable for guys to wear hair because now it wasn't called a toupee anymore. He changed everything. Now, I'm not saying that the way that the hair club sold their product was necessarily, in my view, great, but he made a tremendous impact into guys being able to at least feel comfortable wearing hair. With that said, in the end, it was all salesmanship, it was all marketing, and what you were being sold was a heavier hairpiece because they couldn't sell you what was really going to look good. Because if they did, and you paid $3,000 or $4,000 for it, and it fell apart in 2 months, you'd be fucking freaking out. So they ended up selling you these big fucking wigs.
But look at the future, Spence, Joe. Look at the future. Without it, when we're gone, they're still in the same fucking dilemma. Are you going to get the transplants, or do you want to wear the hairpiece? There's going to be maintenance any way you look at it. It's whatever fits your lifestyle, fits you.
Right.
And like me, I was, I think I can say the psychological warfare I had because I was losing my hair at 17. If I would have lost it, say in my 30s, probably wouldn't bother me as bad because it ran on both sides of my family. My dad lost his hair when he was like 16 or 17. We started losing it. But when you start losing it at 17, that's a little traumatic.
Of course.
And like I said, if I was in my 30s, it would still probably bother me a little bit. But like I said, what happens in your teen years, it kicks the fuck out of you.
I will tell you that the first indicator I ever had of my own hair loss was in the cafeteria during my senior year of high school. 17.
I've been there.
When some asshole
was a girl?
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was almost as bad. When some asshole was going down the line of the table, and I could hear him coming. I'll never forget this. I could hear him coming my way, and I wasn't sure what he was doing. So I'm just eating my lunch and bullshit with my boys, and I hear him going, "You will, you won't, you won't, you won't, you will, you won't, you will." And the last "you will" was when he tapped me on my shoulder. I'm like, "Dude, I will what?" He goes, "You'll be bald. Your back of your head's thinning out. You will." You kept going down the line. I'm like, "What the fuck? I'm thinning?" It wasn't even a concept. It's like it wasn't even on my radar.
Right. And then when they say something like that to you, and especially if it's a girl. I remember the girl told me one time, she said, "Yeah, my friend said that you're going to be bald by the time you're 25. And I was like 19 at the time. I thought, holy shit, that just fucking resonated with me. I mean,
my friend said that you're ugly now.
You said, but just think I'm drunk and you're ugly. Tomorrow I'll be sober and you'll still be ugly.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Look, we live in a really Listen, first of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to call and tell that this is sadly your story is a story that has essentially just evolved. It's just evolved into the same shit another year, another decade, another century.
Right, and mine is so different, only to a degree, because I didn't have a lot done. I mean, like work-wise, but I got caught up on the political bullshit of these people's personal lives dragged me in.
Yeah.
And this is way before Real Housewives and all the reality bullshit. So I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah. You should hang out at the bar of a ISHRS conference.
Oh, I bet it's great. Well, I mean, like I said, I've heard every horror story about everybody. I've heard there's not one doctor that I've talked to that hardly will compliment another doctor. I understand it's competitive, but you really don't want to hear that.
I'm gonna let you go and take this call, but I want to say one thing. You know what I do is, and now the secret's out, but no one's really, these doctors are half these doctors, or most of these doctors aren't even listening. So I go to the conferences. I sit at the bar and I get there early, and I order one glass of wine or one cocktail, and then I tell the bartender, listen, people are going to be coming. So when you ask me for another one, and I order some rounds, get me a club soda with a splash of ginger ale and a lime in a rocks glass.
Well, you're more man than me, Spence, because I would have to roofie myself to listen to that shit.
Yeah, but then what you do is then you watch these guys systematically fall apart in an hour or so, and they tell you everything, man.
Yeah,
it is fucking wild.
Guys, it was great talking to you guys. I will let you take some more calls, and I'll be calling back in.
All right, dude. Good luck. And thank you so much for the call.
Night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
All right, yeah, you too.
You too, buddy.
888-659-3727. I gave away my my drink bit, my drink gimmick.
Yeah. Hey, and before we take this call, we got a guy from the UK trying to call in. He said that what's the thing? It's like if he's on hold, he's going to hear the music, right?
No, if he's on hold, he hears us.
Or hears us.
Yeah.
If it's busy,
he just
gets knocked off the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is a line open now if you want to call in. So feel free to call. Phone number is 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? And where are you calling from?
Hey, Spence, Joe. This is Bruce calling from Houston. How you guys doing?
Hey, Bruce. What's happening?
Down,
What's up, buddy?
Down here in Texas. Man, I listen, man, I listen to you guys every week, but this guy from Oklahoma called in and it hit home. I had to call you guys because of the same, I was up there around the same time. I'm 52.
Okay.
And, let's see, I'm going to try to be a little calmer than the other guy, but,
yeah,
but,
he was good though. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I didn't really, the times I talked to you before, Spence, I didn't really realize, and Joe, you too, how, I guess how well versed, how much knowledge I have in knowing doctors from all over the country from way back in the day. And I was wondering, that doctor I went to Bosley back in that Highland Park Village, but I went in 1995, probably 7 years after this other gentleman went there.
Right.
And I remember that doctor saying he was like, he seemed like a good old boy from Mississippi, a rancher, some kind of guy doctor. And I think he said he was going to retire, move back there or something. And, I just don't know if you remember who it would be back there, like in 95
Let's see.
Highland Park Village.
1995, Highland Park Village.
It was right by SMU.
That's a tough one. That may be the first time I was ever stumped, but I could probably find out within a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Well, and it really, kind of, it doesn't matter. I mean, I just wondered, I would be curious to know who the guy was and back then because I was older than that guy. I was probably 29 when I went, which was still young for a hair transplant. Knowing what I know from you guys nowadays and just being older in life and understanding things, but he had the good bedside manner, just Southern guy, good old boy, seemed like real smooth talker kind of guy. But I remember when he cut one of the strips out of me, man, and Joe, this is another reason I called in, because I was surprised when this guy said, hey, his nerve endings took all those years to grow back. Well, mine were the same way up in the crown, because I'll never forget it. That one strip, when he did pull it out that one time, it seems like he just didn't cut it out good enough and just, like took it a good jerk.
Really?
And when it finally came out, it just felt like a piece of meat. And I'm looking back now, thinking you probably could have thrown that offshore on a fishing line and caught some kind of, game fish or something with it, because the way he pulled it out, it just felt like a big clump of meat.
Well, I have this
big piece of bait.
I have a one story of a guy he's a well-known hair transplant surgeon, and the story goes like this: he ended up cutting off a pretty significant strip. This is when guys were really trying to get the biggest bang for their bucks, doing mega sessions, and he took that strip of tissue, put it in front of his genitalia, and said, "Yeah, that's about right," and then handed it over to his assistants.
Handed it over to his head nurse?
Yeah, his head nurse. And that is a story that resonated with me, that, it was told to me as a joke, as if I was supposed to, find that funny. And I kind of fake laughed, and I'm like, you guys are all so fucked up.
Yeah.
You guys are all so fucked up.
Was this one of the stories you got when you were using your faux alcohol?
This was actually back in the 90s. This is how long. It was the late 90s when I first started. And I was just like, you're actually telling me this story?
Yeah.
I'm writing a book, dude.
Well,
Go ahead.
that just goes to show you, man, how right there, that statement there shows how, I guess, how important this IHRS is that y'all, are involved with, because right there, that just shows you there the seriousness of this is because you're fucking with somebody's, in my opinion, their livelihood.
You are. I'll give you another brief story that I learned very early on in my career. Guy that used to work with Bosley, and he ended up being a very ethical, really good surgeon, said to me that there were twins that came into the office, and this was his first consultation, and I guess and this is all hearsay, and I was not there, so if Larry Lee Bosley or whoever is Larry Lee still alive,
I don't know,
or anyone from his legacy is listening, this is hearsay. I don't know if this is true or not, but this was a story that I was told, and it went like this.
And it went a little something like this.
Two balding guys come in, they're twins. The guy said they want hair a very specific way, and that was I think they wanted it almost like I forgot again, I'm fucking up the story, but they wanted it placed in a very specific way that at the time can never happen. And Dr. Bosley said, "Oh, we can do that for you." And then they closed the door, and this guy's walking along with Dr. Bosley after the consultation. He's like, "Why did you say we can do that for you?" He goes, "Well, we can do anything. It doesn't mean it's going to look good." But and that was it.
And on that note, Dr. Larry Lee Bosley passed away July 11th, 2016 at the age of 84.
84 years old, lived a long life, made a lot of money, and, listen, I will tell you this. Bosley has changed tremendously. So I would say under the eyes of Dr. Ken Washenik and some other people, they have come a long, long way. So,
and I respect that, because when Joe told me, Joe, and I, I'm just joking around sometimes because, 25 years, you kind of let things go. But Joe would always say, "Hey, how far along with that new guy, how they've come, how he really cares about his patients and clients." And I get that. And otherwise they wouldn't still be around today. So when I do throw those jabs out there, it's lightheartedly. I mean, it's.
And I appreciate you saying that, but I'll tell you that you're wrong about one thing. Yeah. They would still be around today. It doesn't matter how long people butcher people. There are 200,000 of us waking up every day for the first time, thinking to ourselves, "What the fuck do we do? We're going bald." They do their research. That could be the first thing that pops up in a search engine. They see an infomercial, boom, they're hooked. They call that 800 number, and they are hooked. So they could hook people on for the first time. But even with that said, the fact that they've evolved is amazing, and it shows the integrity of people.
But you're right. But you're right, because anybody that has a little bit of money and drives down in a brand new vehicle down the road, they got XM Sirius satellite, and the only commercial they play is, "Hey, this isn't your dad's hair loss deal. It's always Bosley."
Yeah.
You don't hear IHRS, the good doctors like Cooley and all them on there. You don't hear because people
we're not spending money on advertising. And frankly,
right.
If the time comes and we do get the volume that I think that we're going to end up getting as the IHRS evolves, maybe that's something that we're going to have to do as far as an educational foundation. But it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. However, again, with that said, Bosley's come a long way, so at least people who get to hear that commercial now are probably going to come away with a decent result at the very least. They're not going to be disfigured in most cases like you might have been.
Well, yeah. Well, I've had some work done since then, and I'm pretty sad. There's just a 2-inch gap in the front that I want to eventually go back and from everybody I've studied, the one guy I really like, he's overseas, the guy in Belgium. But as far as the guy staying here in the United States would be over in North Carolina, I think from what I see out of Cooley, I really like everything about that guy. And I think he'd be a guy that I'd like to go see with my particular wants and needs, or, that I feel like he could help me with, you know. And
Dr. Cooley is
down the road.
I love having him on my website and him being a hair transplant mentor doctor. I think that. Well, I meant to ask you who's the doctor in Brussels you're looking at?
The guy with the name starts with an L. I can't pronounce it right now. I'm not looking at it.
Lupinzola.
Yeah, Lupinzola.
Yeah. Also, fantastic choice. But if you're going to, if you're going to go with either one, I think highly of both of them since I work with them and they're on my website. But
who's better at correcting 2 inches of that multigraft just in the very front from Bosley 1995? Who would be the better out of those two? Well, I guess you can't tell me that because that would.
I can't tell you that only because it depends on what your goal is, and it depends on the actual the canvas that they would have to work on. Dr. Cooley is a big fan of removal of grafts through electrolysis or destruction of grafts. And some people don't like that approach because they're like, oh, it's wasting precious grafts. Well, the problem with that is many times when you have these old mini micros from back in the day, they're damaged and you don't want them transplanted anyway. Like some of the ones that I still have in my old hairline that's now about an inch behind my existing hairline. Some of those hairs were kind of kinky and wiry, and I wouldn't want those moved like to a place that might be visible. It's like I would have been fine if Dr. Wong had said, let's just take them out and like get rid of them or zap them or whatever you'd want to do. That's what I've actually got a video of Dr. Cooley doing this during my visit to his clinic. I documented a patient and then did a follow-up video later on. It works great. It works fantastic. And
so basically what you're saying, sometimes quality is better than quantity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the grafts that were transplanted that are causing you the problem, it's better to kind of suck out the poison, as it were, as opposed to living with it. And there's nothing. Look, in the grand scheme of things, 50 grafts, if you were to put them anywhere, anyway, it's not going to make a cosmetic impact. It's not going to make any difference in your density. It's going to make any difference in the coverage. Well, 50 grafts is not. And I'm just throwing that number out there arbitrarily, but then when you look at the different approach that Dr. Lupinzola would probably take, he would probably go in and remove them with a punch, but even then some of those grafts wouldn't survive simply because the follicle itself might be jammed. It might be splayed. There are all kinds of things. Even scar tissue can form at the base of these follicles when they're compressed. All kinds of things can happen to where that graft might not survive. Dr. Lupinzola actually just did a major graft removal procedure for someone that I know in the UK that went over to him. He removed like about 200 grafts from this guy's hairline, and he did redistribute them, but it's two completely different approaches that can work fantastic for that particular patient that had the procedure. Two great doctors with different approaches, and that's one thing I like about what I do is I get to see these different approaches and how they work out for the patients equally well. It's both of them are awesome in that regard.
Well, hey Joe, real quick, just and I how you just I've been guilty of just making assumptions. I just assume when like when the previous caller had talked about the nerve endings not growing back, whatever. And I got to thinking, that same thing happened to me. It was just a weird deal. I could just tap my fingers up in my crown, and you could just feel, okay, it's kind of numb right there in that spot, and then this, kind of whatever. So. But, no doctor in his right mind or no medical doctor is going to say, oh, yeah, 20 years from now you might gain your nerve endings back. Come on. Nobody would even walk
They won't even tell you that there's a chance you can lose any sensation at all.
Right.
They'll tell you, oh, no, it's fine. It'll be fine. Yeah. If you have any numbness, it'll come back in a couple months.
Yeah. And it was from that. It was from. I know exactly when it was. It was when he pulled that one strip out where he didn't cut it clean all the way, and he ripped it out, and I felt the streak shoot straight up to my crown from where he, pulled it. And remember what I told you? And another thing, I did go back like twice for small, like, I mean, back then they'd say, okay, 250 grafts, and it cost you $5,000 back in the day. And then they, you know, like 2 or 3, 4 months later, they'd call you back and you go for the second one. And then they cut the first strip too low because they said it was fine hairs at the lower end of the deal. And then they cut the other one too high, kind of out of the safe zone kind of deal. So that's why I want to go to Cooley or this guy in Belgium, because they can sit there and tell me that maybe, hey, you know what? We can't do another strip one. You got too many scars. Let's just try. If you do have donor left, let's just go for like an FUE or something and do the finishing touches and be done with it, you know. And you know, in retirement, I can live with my head shaved for, you know, whatever, how many months until it grows in. But you know, it's just one of those deals. But
you're retired at 52?
I will be. I've been down here in the police department for 30 years, so I will be in about probably 3 or 4 years from now.
Wow, good for you, man.
Congratulations.
Thanks for your service, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Spence, one quick story I got to tell you.
Yeah.
When I was there in 1995 at that Bosley up there, it's right by the SMU, Southern Methodist University. The Highland Park Village is that high-end area of Dallas, you know?
Yeah.
And so I go in there, and I remember going to the restroom, but I'm a young guy, you know, and I'm, you know, curious. You know, I was a young cop, you know, I'm the guy probably dated a girl, go in the bathroom and look through all her shit, you know, I don't know. So
well, you're a cop,
I'm coming back and, I'm passing this room, and it seemed like there was a lot of guys, and I don't know if it's their culture, and this is nothing politically incorrect, but it seemed like a lot of Middle Eastern guys were coming across from Saudi Arabia at that time getting hair transplants, and this guy was in this room, and he looked like he was down on his back and his butt like a crab on all four. And back then they were doing those with scalp reductions, you know, that they realized that aren't any good for you.
Yeah.
And they were doing those in those days. And this guy was getting one done, and I walked by and I saw him. He was freaking out like he saw some monster or something, or like he was hallucinating on LSD or acid or something back in the day. You know, and I'm looking, and this guy's freaking out, going, "Oh!" And I'm just standing there looking at him. And then the nurse grabs me all of a sudden. She goes, "You're not supposed to be looking at other people." And she walked me over to where I was supposed to be.
And you still had the surgery.
Story.
And
I'm assuming so, because I think it was more like, I think it was like a cultural thing, man, over there in the Middle East.
No, I'm saying, but you still had, after seeing that, after seeing a guy screaming in a room, you decided, I'm going to get mine done too.
Well, that's the thing, Spence. That's how stupid naive I was when I was 28, 29 years old, and why I vividly remember that, because I look back now and I'm going, why in the fuck did you even go through with it? You know, I mean, I'm telling myself now, my age, you know.
And and again, I'm just busting your balls, but that is very typical. We want to believe what we want to believe.
My balls need to be busted on. Yeah, my balls need to be busted on that, because I'm looking back going, shit, man. I go, this guy here is walking, you know, coming, you know, over here scared to death. He got off a plane from probably a 14-hour flight and freaking out. And here I am. They're fixing to cut on me and shit. And it just, I didn't sit good the rest of the day. You know, that's just a different era back then.
Well, honestly, it was a different era, but there are similar tactics and even worse tactics, I think, are being used today. So, you know,
Man, that's see, I can't fathom that. I mean, you would think, well, not with these clean doctors that you guys promote, but I mean, or talk about, but I mean, these guys, I can see how you walk into these stupid, see, a guy like my age now, or your age, or Joe, we can walk in a place like that now, and we can see the writing on the wall, and we can turn around and walk back out. But like you're right, there's 25-year-olds out there right now that don't know any better.
You'd also be surprised. There are guys that are, you know, they're sold a bill of goods. They believe that there's a certain device out there, and they go and they ask about the name of the device as though it's a state-of-the-art procedure. And if someone owns this piece of equipment, anyone can just say, "Yeah, we do the so-and-so procedure." And they're fucking sold. They have no clue. They think it is a non-invasive, one-size-fits-all, fucking, you know, turnkey, simple, you know, outpatient procedure now, minimal scarring to no scarring, depending on who you're talking to. And everyone just thinks it's all the same. And it's as bad as it was back then. It was bad. It was gruesome. The volume of people who were getting it done was far less. And the people that were doing it, there were far less people performing the surgery. So in general, now it's much more dangerous, and there are so many more walking wounded than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So listen, dude.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing, guys, before I go. But I know you guys got to take another call. But
that's cool.
Hindsight's 20/20, and the two procedures that I had, the small ones done back then with the small amount of grafts that they used and the multiple grafts, they just didn't do, just nothing was done right. Only thing done right, I think, is that the scars, even to this day, are minimal. I mean, even back, I think in '95, maybe just it could have been Bosley was doing better than with that, or maybe just that doctor had some ER experience.
You're also only they're also only taking 250 grafts out of your head at a time.
Right, because I only needed that little bitty front area done at that time. And you're right, I didn't think about it like that. So maybe that's what it was. So I got blessed in that aspect. But, at the same time, I'm wondering, did they waste, back in those days, do you know if they wasted grafts they just didn't know how to get
sometimes it depends.
Harvest the amount that they need. Huh?
Sometimes they harvest it. It's interesting because, believe it or not, there are a lot of stories, and it happens to this day, where it's the end of the day or someone doesn't want to pay for their grafts, they'll just throw them in the garbage.
Yep.
They'll just throw those fucking grafts in the garbage. That's it.
What do you mean if they don't want to pay for them?
Essentially, they'll make a deal for, say, I don't know, 1,000 grafts. Let's just give it a nice round figure. And then they are able to harvest, say, 1,400 grafts or 1,300 grafts. And they do the count, and the guy is under anesthetic. And the story goes like this. Now, the guy is under anesthetic, and doctor comes in or an assistant comes in and says, "Look, we have another 400 grafts. Would you like to give us your credit card? Would you like to pay for those, and we can implant them?" And if the guy says, "Not really, I don't really have the money," he doesn't really understand what that means. They just throw that shit out.
They dispense.
Yep.
Okay, now an IAH SRS, whatever doctor, if they come to you and say that they're legit, but are these other guys, when they come to you like that, do you really believe them? Are they bullshitting you want more money, or do they really have those grafts? What do you think?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, normally it's because they have the grafts, but it is possible now, if they really wanted to. There are companies that split grafts. There are companies that do all. So yeah, I guess that's something that is more devious than I've ever actually thought of. Something like that happening.
I'll talk about how fucking shady the industry is, and then you're talking about, you walk in there. I mean, who could say, "Hey, this guy's got some money," or maybe they think he does. Hey, we need another fucking $8,000 to pay this salary for this month.
Look,
or
this
whatever.
is a really shady industry. I actually advise people, no matter how you go, who you go with, to have an advocate with you, someone who could sit there with you and listen to the consultation, even record the consultation, someone who can actually be in the surgical suite with you, and maybe even record it so you know exactly what's going on. Now, there's no ethical doctor in this country or around the world that would say, "You know what, I'm not going to accept that. You can't come in the ER." If they're ethical, they'll allow it. Now, most people won't do that. I can tell you what, if I had surgery of this kind, or any form of cosmetic surgery, I would hire a nurse. They would be my advocate and my videographer, period.
Okay. Well,
I can see the doctor trying to make a decision shaking from so much anxiety.
That's the way that I am.
You're right, because a person under the knife is going to be they might be a little jittery, a little nervous. They may forget a key question that they need to ask right before, and I did. My wife's a doctor or psychologist, whatever, and she was my advocate. She was there, asked the questions all the time, and I think that's why when this time, I mean, I'm talking about of recent years where I really got a good bargain and deal on the results on this deal, because she was there. But at the end of the day, if you go by yourself, dude, once they fucking throw that, once you swallow that little Valium, if you've never taken that shit, you feel like you feel like you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Absolutely. And you're just like, oh yeah, whatever, man. Yeah. You want to cut the top of my scalp open? And whatever you think is right.
The nurse could be, 250 pounds, look like shit, and you're over there trying to flirt with her.
Absolutely.
And you're like,
I love those drugs. All right, man. Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for the call. And again, thanks for your service, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
You,
okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
All right. Let's get out of here. Let's call it a night early.
No calls?
You cool with that? Well, not right now, but I know someone's. As soon as you said that, someone's going to call. I was trying to
I'm
close
cool.
up shop.
No, I'm cool. I could actually use the extra time.
All right. Yeah. Listen, it's all right. It's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Big fucking deal, guys. It's Thanksgiving week. I'm going to go. I want to thank all of you for tuning in.
Before you do, are we going to be on Friday?
Oh my God.
I know.
I don't know. Let's think about that.
Okay. Everyone's going to be home. They're going to be rubbing their bellies from the leftovers.
Possibly.
They're going to be bored and not bored, but they're going to be driven up a wall by the family.
Well, put it this way: it's possible that I'm going to take the day off, and you can do whatever you want.
Respite. Huh? Okay. Okay. All right.
You can do whatever you want, but or I may show up for work that day.
Or I may show up.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm brining my turkey right now as we speak.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Yeah. All right, guys. Listen, I want to thank you for tuning in. The website's thebaldtruth.com for archives of this broadcast and also clips. Just put up a new video segment with Atlanta hair transplant surgeon and IHRS member Dr. John P. Cole talking about the reality of getting fucked up in today's new normal of the hair transplant field. Back in the day, you got a strip and it was fucked up. Okay. Not great, but you're probably repairable. Now, not so much. Times have changed. You can be repaired, but if someone goes for it, you go in there and get 4,000, 5,000 FUE grafts removed in place and it doesn't work out, you're probably fucked. So you got to get it right the first time. So check out that segment. Also, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, like we were just talking about, check out the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. That's IAHRS.org. Joe's website is hairtransplantmentor.com. Everything Joe Tillman and more.
I like that.
Yeah, on the website, hairtransplantmentor.com. Joe, keep it short. Talk about the guys who are embedding our program on their websites and forums.
hairlossexperiences.com, bellycapelli.forumfree.it, international-hairlossforum.com. They're all great forums. They all support our message, and they all stream this broadcast through their respective web properties. Check them out, hairlossexperiences.com, bellycapelli.forumfree.it, and international-hairlossforum.com. How's that for short?
That was beautiful, man. It was the perfect amount of time and promotion for these guys who are really, thankfully, on board with getting the truth and getting our message out to for public consumption. And
let me wrap that one up by saying they're not psychopaths.
Yes. And they're not concerned and not seeing what's in it for me. You know what's in it for you? You're fucking helping people. That's it. That's what's in it for you.
Whoa. Hang on. Helping people? Get out.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. That's the only benefit to these guys is that they're helping people. So thank you. The American Hair Loss Association, that's americanhairloss.org. No, I don't want to get drunk. I'm already drunk, Tyler. So I'm just kidding. I'm not drunk at all. See, I play that game.
Exactly.
You don't know when I'm really drunk, guys. I promise.
It ain't pretty.
It ain't pretty.
It ain't pretty.
I think that's it. BaldTruthTalk.com is our message forum. Bald Truth Talk is heavily moderated. You're not going to hear or see any shit on there. It is a zero bullshit tolerance policy. Period. Love it or leave it. That is the policy.
And I got to say, Bald Truth Talk Forum and Hair Transplant Mentor is skyrocketing on the traffic scale right now. I don't know what's going on, but it's like I look at it's like something's happening. The message is getting out there. People are more and more people than ever are finding our resources, and they're dialed, and it's a good thing. It's enjoyable. I'm looking at it right now. It's insane what's happening.
It's exciting, man. It's exciting. What about the rabbi, Spencer? I don't know. I haven't had a drink with the rabbi for a long time.
I think that's a follow-up to the question about at Joe, how's No Nut November coming along? I refuse to take part in that.
I have no clue what anybody's talking about on the forum or on your chat room. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Until next time, whenever that may be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.
I always hear a lot of guys calling in, and they're always like, down and out about their haircuts.
Sure.
I lost my hair when I was 16 to 17 years old.
That's heavy.
Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's all good, man. And the funny thing is,